Okay. I'm going to get started. I know we're a small crew. I expect it to stay small today based upon missing yesterday's call. So sorry if you guys were here and had to come back today, but thanks for coming. We're probably going to just, I'm still going to do the same topic I was going to talk about because I know some people were specifically wanting to see it. They wrote me emails. So they'll see the recording and be able to watch the notes. But then you guys will have a lot of time to ask specific questions if you want to. Either that or we'll have a shorter call. So it'll be up to you depending on how many questions you brought with you or didn't bring. So if you have not been here before, my name is Lisa. I'm the nutritionist here at Raw Generation and also the product developer. So pretty much every flavor and product we have, I create, as well as the systems and, I answer customer questions. I obviously make videos and I do these calls and all kinds of different things. So today's topic is 5 surprising weight loss tips. So I was just thinking of things I've learned over the years, my own personal journey, and also with my clients. For years before working here, I had my own nutrition practice for about 20 years. And the majority of my clients were either peri or during menopausal women that couldn't lose weight easily, or autoimmune disorder people. A lot of people with autoimmune disorders. I'm a holistic practitioner, so they would seek me out after conventional medicine couldn't really help them. So those are the 2 areas that I tended to specialize in. So that expands to gut health and hormones and all that kind of stuff. So I try to pick 5 things that I know most people are surprised when I tell them when I meet with them face to face. So if you've been on my calls before, you may have heard some of these, or if you've read my emails regularly, you may have heard some of these, but others probably not. So I'll get right started. And if you have a question while I'm talking, just, do the little hand raise. Otherwise I'll stop periodically to see if you have questions. So, first off, my first tip, aside from the normal things, which you're probably expecting, like drink more water, do more exercise, that kind of stuff, get better sleep. These are just specific to the food part of losing weight. First being not cooking in any type of oil or fat, including healthy oil. So obviously if you've done old time dieting, you've probably done the whole like spray your oil on the pan, non-stick spray, that kind of thing. Or you're doing the healthier option of recent years, which is using extra virgin olive oil to saute, which is certainly healthier, but I would not go so far as to say healthy, and certainly not best for weight loss. So the reason being is that now those fats are not unhealthy fats. They're actually, I eat them every single day, but I never heat them. The reason why is because when you heat a fat, even a healthy fat, it chemically changes the composition of that fat and it makes it not recognizable by your body. So your body, number one, has to store it somewhere, so that could raise your triglycerides. It could, when you get love handles that you don't want, that's your body storing extra fat. Also, it causes more oxidation in your body, so that could therefore promote disease more, or not be as healthy in that light when you heat a fat. So what I recommend doing to cook food, and it is a little bit different, it's different to get used to, but once you do it, you'll find that food is still very delicious, is either dry roasting. So I dry roast on parchment paper a lot. So what I would do is say I wash the vegetables I'm going to cook and I still season them like I normally would, salt, pepper, garlic, whatever. And I dry roast them on parchment paper in the oven and they still get crispy and the texture is great. If you want olive oil, if you just like the flavor or the texture of having olive oil, you add it after the fact while still keeping it cold pressed and not heating it. You don't have to do that. It's only if you want to do that. I actually find that I don't even need it anymore. I used to cook with olive oil. I'm Italian. I always grew up cooking with olive oil all the time. So that was a big shift for me. But once I shifted that, it changed my gut health, number one. But I really started noticing major differences in my clients, especially the 40 to 50-year-old women that had the hardest time losing weight, because they would come to me, they'd follow everything I would say to a T. And they would just lose a pound after 3 months and they'd be so frustrated. And that was a major game changer for these women that had slower metabolisms, had a hard time losing weight, was not cooking and eating healthy oil anymore. So aside from the dry roasting, you can also do what I call water sauteing or chicken broth sauteing. So you would take, say, potatoes, if you want to slice them thin and you're going to saute them, for example, you only need a little bit of water or chicken broth to kind of cook them. And it's like a saute steam. You cook them, but you have the lid on it. So it's like steaming while it's sauteing. And that kind of is another way to easily cook. Of course, there's always baking and boiling and steaming. Those are 3 tried and true. Anyone who's ever tried dieting knows those ones. I don't even like to refer to it as dieting. Obviously, that I'm all about a healthy lifestyle, but I just know that people that come here often have tried the diet culture, so they're familiar with those things. So that's my number one tip, is to try changing how you prepare your meals. Obviously, if you're eating in a restaurant, you're not going to find too many options that are not cooked in some kind of fat. So unless you order steamed vegetables. So if you don't eat frequently in restaurants, and that's just something you do once or twice a month, and it's a treat, then have it and don't think twice about it. If it's something you do on a weekly or daily or multiple times a week basis, you might want to reconsider the things you're ordering, because you can sabotage your goals. Even if you're doing every meal in your own house properly, but you're eating lunch out 4 times a week at work or something, you could be having a seed oil in a dressing. You could be having something sauteed in unhealthy oil or fat every single day, and that could totally be sabotaging what you're doing the rest of the time. So, number one. Number two, I don't believe in counting calories, which I think most of you probably know if you've ever been here before. And I actually, when it does come to calories, I believe that more calories are better, not less calories, when they are the right calories. I say this from my own personal experience, being a calorie restrictor for years prior, when I couldn't lose weight. I would restrict to 1,200 or less, and I could tell you the amount of calories and fat grams in any food since the time I was in 5th grade, because that's how long I've been obsessed with my weight at the time. It certainly changed into becoming a health pursuit for me, but at the beginning it was all about weight. And what I have found now, I haven't counted a calorie or been on a scale in probably 2 decades, but I can tell you that if I was estimating just based upon knowing the volume of food that I currently eat, I probably eat upwards of 3,000 or more calories a day now. And I've never been in better shape. I've never had to think about what I eat anymore. I don't have to think about the size I buy of my clothes. I've been buying clothes without trying them on for years and years now, because it's consistently the same. And that's something I never, ever had before. So I know what it feels like to not have that for sure. So more calories being from the right places, which is, to me, the most important place to get calories from are fresh fruits and vegetables. People tend to be really afraid of eating fruit because of the culture that's been around fruit sugar causing, they think it makes you fat. Eat a half a banana, only eat low glycemic fruits like berries and green apples. And that is the opposite of what I personally do, the opposite of what I've taught for many, many, many years and had success with all of my clients, and that includes my diabetic clients over the years. So I'm a big proponent of eating a lot of fruit. So my lunch, if I can show you my bag, I have, I think it's 8 or 9 of those Sumo oranges. I love them, packed in my bag, and a banana. And I just had some dates, and that is what I brought for food, because I will pretty much eat fruit almost all day until dinner time, most days. Satiates me, keeps my energy up. It's good fiber, good water hydration. And I've learned over the years of lots of things that I've tried that it certainly keeps me not bloated. It keeps me just feeling light and good all day. And I no longer crave heavier things during the day. If I have something heavier, like if I go out for a work lunch and I'll have sushi or something, I still make a healthy choice, but I'll feel weighed down and heavy, and I have to digest that differently than I just with through. You just kind of go about your day. And then I eat a large, full dinner every night, and I don't restrict in any way, shape, or form the amount of carbohydrates or fat that I have or protein that I have. I eat a lot of it. And this has worked for me for so many years. I don't worry about the time that I eat, the times a day. I don't make myself have a breakfast if I'm not hungry. I don't make myself have an early dinner. If I don't get home until 11, I'm having my dinner at 11:30 at night. I don't necessarily advocate for that, but I do it. And I'm fine doing that. I always have been. And this is coming from a person who literally could never lose weight for many, many years. And I tried everything there was to try. And so I say this from a lot of experience, not from one of those people that was like always skinny and could do whatever they wanted. It comes from truly trying everything and finding this, and then learning that not only did it make you lose weight, but I learned that it was biologically so healthy for my body. It was so in tune with how we pretty much designed to eat. Like if you just think about like as back to basics as you want to think, if you were just put out in nature with your hands, what would you inclined to eat? You'd try to find a fruit tree and eat all the fruits you could eat because it would taste good naturally. You wouldn't have to do anything to it. You probably wouldn't go like, let's go see if I can find a chicken and I'm gonna try to kill a chicken with my bare hands and eat it. Like, not saying that you shouldn't eat chicken, because I do eat meat, but I'm just saying if you go back to just as basic as your instincts could be, fruit has always been a natural instinct for humans to. It smells good, it tastes good, it's easy to eat a lot of. So don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it from a disease standpoint or a weight standpoint. I promote it highly in all cases, except for epileptics. It's the one and only case that I'll say to do a ketogenic diet. That's number two. Number three, typical thing I see. So when I meet with my clients, I go into their homes and I go through their cabinets with them and their refrigerators if they want me to, which they always do. So I can help them learn to read the labels of the foods that they currently have and tell them things that they can swap. That's actually why with our weight loss systems at Regeneration, the Stay Skinny method and the protein method, I include healthy swaps guides because I know that was so beneficial to my clients when I met with them. So all the weight loss systems that I've created since I've been here have a lot of my resources that I would give my clients. And I just kind of repurpose them to give to you guys. So just so you know, those things all come directly from me, and I create them because I used them for years and I've just changed them. So that's kind of me going through your cabinet without me being in your house in those programs. But that being said, what I always find in the homes of people who have ever tried to lose weight are the things like fat-free Jello, fat-free half and half, low-fat yogurt, Light and Fit, Dannon, sugar-free cookies, the things that are free, gluten-free, sugar-free, fat-free. They are almost always, without exception, with very little exception, the worst foods on the planet for you. And the sad part is that, like, if you even were to go to a registered dietitian, unless they've been holistically trained, they will tell you to have those foods as well. I've had many diabetic people come to me after working with a dietitian saying, well, I have my sugar-free Jello because my dietitian told me to have that, and I have this because the doctor told me to have this. And I'm not knocking the traditional medical field at all. I just think there's a lot of ignorance because of what they're taught. So they don't necessarily know about the difference between the quality of food versus what they see. When they look on a label, they probably look at the grams of sugar or the grams of sodium instead of looking at the source of where they're coming from, which is the ingredients in the bottom, the tiny little part underneath all those numbers. That's the important part to read on a label, to see what the source of the sugar is. Is the source fruit or is it maltodextrin? What's the source of the sodium? Is it table salt or is it celery? You can get sodium from lots of places and you can get sugar from lots of places, and some of them are really good for you and some of them are really bad for you. So I 100% would tell you, you are way better off having an organic whole milk than you are having any kind of skim plus or skim milk. Because in order to make something fat-free, low-fat, sugar-free that's not naturally that way, we have to add chemicals, fillers, gums, seed oils, all kinds of things that are completely the opposite of good and healthy for you. They cause disease, they cause weight gain. Most people have heard by now that Diet Pepsi causes more weight gain than regular Pepsi. That's because there's all the junk in Diet Pepsi. And I don't promote having either kind of soda, but if you're going to have one or the other, have the real Pepsi. It's actually better for you than the diet. That's how bad diet foods are. So one of my major rules is, even though you have to step over that fear, because people that are so weight loss conditioned and diet conditioned, like my mother's a perfect example of this. Like, she cannot get it through her head that it's better for her to have like olive oil than it is for her to have pretzels, because her pretzels are fat free and olive oil is full of fat. And I'm like, Mom, trust me. She's I'm sure other people are like that too. You're so used to the slim fast and those kinds of things that teach you just about the calories and not the quality of your food. And it's quality, it's not quantity. That really makes the difference. I just saw a question come in, so I'll read that before I go further. What about plant-based meats and cheeses? Great question. I am typically against all of those as well. I'm not against eating a plant-based diet when it's actually real plants. But when you have plant-based foods like milks, cheeses, meats, they're almost always full of chemicals and junk. Last year, I went to an expo at the Javits Center here in New York City. We're in New Jersey, but not too far from here. And I was excited to see what it was called, a plant-based expo or something like that. And what I walked into was a science experiment. There was no real food to be had in this whole building by like one little table. There's nothing I would even taste. I wouldn't even taste the things, because I was so horrified at the things. This is just people using marketing and chemicals to make unhealthy food look healthier. That's all it is. So the plant-based movement as a whole, I love the idea of it. I hate the way it has gone. It has gone in the direction of just replacing, so I would tell you, have a real grass-fed burger, not a plant-based Impossible Burger. It's 1,000 times better for you to have real high quality animal protein than it is to have fake plant protein. That being said, you can't do better than a raw vegan style lifestyle or a high raw diet. I've done it for 20 years. So the more raw plants you can put into your diet, from juices, from smoothies, from fruits, from vegetables, you can't top those with any kind of, in my opinion, any kind of animal or any kind of food. But I do think there's definitely a place for a healthy raw diet for things like organic grass-fed eggs and meats and things like that, as long as they're high quality. So I hope that answered that question for you. Number 4. You're welcome, Leslie. One thing that I've found, now this works for weight loss. It works for weight maintenance. It also works just for general good digestion. I mean, I personally struggled with what I'm sure would have been diagnosed as IBS if I had ever gone to a doctor for it, because I would be so bloated some days that I looked like I was pregnant. I actually owned two different sizes of jeans because I never knew what size I was going to be when I woke up in the morning. And this was even when I was eating what I would consider healthy food. When I learned about unhealthy foods, I just didn't know about food combining. And food combining is such a huge thing to know. And they make it very complicated. If you actually look up food combining, it'll make you go nuts. It's so simple. It's not at all nearly as difficult, at least what I found, and I proven for myself and others. Just don't eat fruit and fat together, and save your fat. Once you have fat in the day, don't have more sugar. It's as simple as that. So I recommend having fruit and light foods. Light to heavy, you'll hear me say it all the time in the systems. You'll hear me say it on these calls. Eat light to heavy every day. The opposite of what you've been told. Not a big breakfast. To me, it's the worst thing in the world if you want to be weighed down, or if you don't want to deal with bloating. So light, water-rich foods all day as much as you can. And I personally save almost all my fat unless I'm out, like I said, for a lunch, a meeting or something, till dinner time. And at that point, I'll have all the fat I want. I'll have as much as 2 avocados and olive oil and nuts and everything on my salad. I have 2 potatoes. I eat like you would not believe the amount of food. The bowl is literally this big. It's a serving size bowl. It takes me an hour to eat it. I don't care what time of the day that I eat it, but I eat it. And I don't worry about restricting whatsoever. And I wake up every morning with a flat tummy, with high energy, feeling good, because I've properly combined the entire day. So I highly recommend, if you're having a hard time struggling with bloating or even just losing weight, moving your fat consumption to 1 meal per day. And I recommend it being your dinner meal. However, if you're out and you're having your fat meal at lunchtime, then just swap and have a lighter dinner. Lighter dinner could be something like a bean soup. It could be like hummus and veggies. It could be steamed vegetables and rice, something like that. So you don't have to have, these huge meals actually ever if you don't want to, but I recommend just having one a day, and ideally towards the end of the day. And my number 5 surprising tip is this actually was brought back to my mind recently with a customer that I had a call. And this is something I've always believed, but I don't talk about often. And I learned this also when I started learning that calories in versus calories out didn't work for me regarding weight loss. And I started learning about holistic eating. I learned a lot about toxins and how your body handles the toxic load from different foods. And believe it or not, if you keep even one toxic thing on a regular basis, that could oftentimes be hindering your body from letting go of weight if you're in a spot where you need to lose weight. Now, I'm not saying to be a perfectionist. I'm not at all like I'm a big believer like an 80-20, making your lifestyle work for you. That being said, if you're in a spot where you are stuck, you can't drop weight, or you have a specific goal in mind, those are the times when you do want to be stricter with yourself and then get to a maintenance place where you can be much looser with yourself. To me, that's my personal recommendation. So this woman I was speaking to was doing everything like literally to a T. She's doing the Signature Reset program. I spoke to her on the phone a couple days ago. And at first I couldn't find anything wrong with what she was doing. And I couldn't understand honestly why she was dropping unless she had a hormonal thing going on that I couldn't diagnose obviously over the phone. But then she told me she takes this drink every morning, this like beach body something drink, I don't know. And she's like, I've always kept it because I lost a lot of weight always having this. And I had to sit back and think, okay, well, look at this. You're eating a non-toxic diet now. You're not even straying. You're being to the letter as clean as you can eat. And you're having every morning on a daily basis, this very toxic drink that has all kinds of chemicals in it. So your body is in this mode still of getting toxic load every day. And so your body will then hold on to fat a lot of the time. And believe it or not, when you cut out all the chemicals, even for a length of time, that's why cleansing is so effective. When you cut out the chemicals, your body will start to feel safe about shedding weight. Your body sometimes holds on to weight to protect you. So that's one of your body's mechanisms for protection. So when your body starts realizing I'm not getting bombarded with toxins anymore, it will let go of the weight. So something to try if you haven't tried that. So those are my 5 tips. Before I get into the rest, do we have any questions that I missed or that you want to ask? Okay. The next thing on the list. Okay. A supplement that can mess up your weight loss goals specifically. Now, this is really interesting how I discovered this. I had a client once that was a younger girl. She was like, I think she was under 20. And typically, most girls at that age can easily, should easily be able to lose weight. They still have good metabolism. And this girl was, to her what she told me, was doing everything I said. I could not figure out why she was not losing an ounce. I just couldn't figure it out. So I eventually had her log her food for me. I said, I want you to log everything you eat and drink. I don't care if you think it's silly. I want you to log it for me, everything you do. And I started, and I at this, we have a little juice bar by us called Dean's. And I had told her I go there lots of times for smoothies because they have like fresh juices and smoothies. And that was long before there's a raw generation to even tell her about. And so on her list, she started writing every day she was going to Dean's for this Omega Mega smoothie. I'm like, I wonder what's in this Omega Mega smoothie. I'm thinking like, let's see what's in it. So I'm looking at this ingredient list, and in it is flaxseed oil. Now, flaxseed oil, not a bad food. However, she was having flaxseed oil with a fruit smoothie every single day in the morning. I'm thinking, this is the problem right here. Her body's not going to drop this weight because she's having fruit and fat together, and she's having all this like, oil is pure fat. There's nothing else in it but fat every day. So I told her, I want you to stop. If you want to have your smoothie every day, tell them to leave out the flaxseed oil and go from there. And I kid you not, within 1 week of her changing that over, she lost like 6 pounds the next time I saw her. And it was just that one simple change that I never would have thought of, because she's like, I'm having my smoothie in the morning. And so sometimes you don't realize how one little thing can really, especially with women, women's bodies are so sensitive to every little thing, how it changes. So this brings me to the supplement that I'm talking about. A lot of people take flaxseed oil or fish oil supplements. I'm not opposed to necessarily to you taking them. However, I don't recommend having them in the morning. If you're going to have them at night. Because if you have them in the morning, you're already putting a fat source into your body, and that's negating the whole thing I just told you about with having the light to heavy. You're basically mixing fat with fruit the rest of your day, and you're asking for bloating and weight gain from that. So that's the supplement surprise that some people don't know. Okay, next, my number one recipe. I make this recipe literally all the time, and it definitely is a savior for me. I like to snack. I always did. So it's a food that you can have anytime, lunch, dinner. And you can have for breakfast. I don't know why you don't have for breakfast. You have it late at night, and that's my no oil hummus recipe. So if you have ever tried the Stay Skinny method, the protein method, or the signature reset, that recipe is in all 3 of those programs. Because it's, like I said, my favorite. I'm going to tell you guys how to make it. Note it down. Now's the time to write it. It's a smoothie. It's a smoothie. It's a hummus with no oil. So that means you're going to use the some of the reserve water from the beans that actually make it really smooth, surprisingly. So it's 2 cans of chickpeas. I get organic chickpeas. It should be just chickpeas, water, and salt, and nothing else in your chickpeas. Check for like preservatives and stuff. You don't need them. 1 full can of chickpeas with the can of liquid, and 1 drained can of chickpeas. Then you're going to add 2 tablespoons of tahini. So if you don't know what tahini is, that's sesame seed, like paste, like peanut butter, but made out of sesame seeds. My favorite by far is this tahini that Trader Joe's sells. I love the flavor, the texture of theirs. So if you have a Trader Joe's by you, I couldn't recommend that one more highly. If you want a raw tahini, 1 little teaspoon each of garlic and onion powder. I don't typically do raw and onions in. I'm sorry. Could you just make sure everyone's muted? Please mute your thing so the sounds aren't coming through. Thank you. Garlic and onion powder and a little dash of cumin, and then generous amount of salt. I'm all about using healthy salt. I don't restrict that either. So healthy salt to me would be like a Redmond's real salt. That's my favorite salt. You could also use like a Himalayan salt or a Celtic salt, whatever salt you want. I mean, you could research them all. They all have pros and cons. Redmond's is the one I always go with. And I don't restrict that either. And the juice of 1 whole lemon. And that's it. So it's like 5 or 6 ingredients. And you can make that either in a food processor, or I make mine in my Vitamix. So if you have a high-speed blender like a Vitamix, that's great. You cannot usually make it in a regular blender like a Hamilton Beach or something like that. There's just not going to be able to blend that because there's not enough liquid. But if you have a Vitamix with like a tamper that you can use, a stopper, or a food processor, you can make it. So that hummus you can have with veggies, you could have it on potatoes, you could have it on top of a salad like a dressing. I just use it all the time. And I find like having it as a vegetable dip is such a great way to get in raw veggies. If you have a whole plate of raw veggies in front of you, most people do not enjoy eating them just plain, maybe except for carrots or like snap peas or something. But if you have a really tasty dip, you'd be amazed at how many vegetables you can eat, all that fiber, all that water, all those minerals, and you can have that as a late night snack, and it won't hinder any of your goals. If anything, it'll help you because it's the fiber so rich, it'll help you keep everything moving smoothly. So that's my top recipe. I just saw a question. How late should you eat at night? Kind of touched on this. I don't prescribe to having certain eating times. I eat when I'm hungry. So for me, that looks like I usually don't have breakfast until 11 or 12 because I just don't wake up hungry in the morning. But that's probably because I eat so late at night. My schedule is one that where I work late hours oftentimes. And so sometimes I'm not even making my dinner until like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So, like I said, I don't recommend that. It's not the best thing for your body biologically with your circadian rhythms, but you can do that and survive and still look and feel good. Ideally, you'd want to, probably have dinner before 7. That's like probably the healthiest thing. So your body has good digestion. You sleep better at night. I'm so tired at night that I sleep just fine. Doesn't matter how late I eat, but I might be, might be an outlier with that. So ideally, yeah, if you can eat dinner before 7, you'll feel, you'll have a good sleep and you'll wake up feeling pretty light in the morning. You'll probably be hungry for breakfast, which should be like, again, fruit or juice or something really water rich and light. Okay. And lastly, my favorite snacks at night, sweet snacks and salty snacks. I always tell this story. So when I first learned about eating healthy and a raw diet specifically. So if you don't know, I ate a total raw vegan diet for 8 years, and I still eat a almost all raw diet. Now this is now 20 years later. I eat some cooked food, but very little. I didn't restrict myself into how much to have anything because it was hard enough to just get my head around the fact that I was just not cooking my food anymore. So I would eat I like to chew. I always did. I used to actually have binge eating issues when I was younger. So I would wash 3 bags of grapes and put a whole big bowl in front of me, and I would just watch a movie and eat them and eat them and eat them. Probably to give myself a stomachache when I was younger, but I mean, no more. But that's still my favorite sweet snack at night because I can just eat them and never to any detriment of myself. So, and I also do like dates at night. That's something sweet that I like. And I only need a few of those. It's almost like having candy to me. My favorite salty snacks are, like I said, the veggies and the hummus. I love that at night for like a TV snack. And I'll also make popcorn sometimes. So the best, if you're trying to lose weight, is air popped popcorn. However, you can also make a really healthy popcorn by getting the actual kernels, the organic kernels, and putting just a tiny bit of olive oil on the bottom of a pot and popping it in that with sea salt. That is an example of heating fat, so I don't do it very often. However, if you're choosing between that and having Doritos or something, it's a way better option. So, small steps, make small changes you can make, because that's a really tasty, for someone who loves snacky, salty snacks, that's a really healthy swap that you can make that's better for your weight and your health. Okay, so that is my very long list of all the cool things that I wanted to talk about today. So you now have a half an hour, which is what I always try to leave for questions. So like I was saying to you guys that just came, this is definitely a smaller group than we usually have. I'm assuming because the emails didn't go out yesterday as they were supposed to for a normal Wednesday meeting. So I'm glad for those of you that could join today that maybe couldn't have joined yesterday. So that's nice to meet the new faces. So we might not have as many questions, or maybe you guys will just have a lot and you'll have the floors to yourself. So feel free to either type them, or, I mean, you can actually just unmute and talk to me. That's usually the easiest way. It can be questions about our products. It can be about nutrition in general. Anything that it's in my wheelhouse of understanding, I'm happy to talk to you guys about. Supplements are not my best thing, but I know some things about supplements. So you tell me if there's something you want to discuss. Hey, Erin. Go for it.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. How are you? Welcome.
Pretty good. Thank you. I always miss the things. And so it was like, oh, day late. This is perfect. I'm late for everything. So
I'm glad it worked out for you.
yes, thank you. And I love all your information. This is awesome. I am wondering, when I am, focusing on fruits and the fats, like you said, that was interesting. Where does protein fall into this? Because in a lot of raw vegan stuff, the protein and the fats come together, and I noticed with a lot of juicing products, it's in the cashew milks and the smoothies. So when you are saying fruit, I'm hearing, there is a carbohydrate component to that. I know the fiber slows that down, and also the fats slow down that absorption of that carbohydrates. So I'm just wondering, where are you when you're talking about this, are you lumping protein together with the fats, or how would you specify that?
Well, that depends a little bit on where you are with your personal goal and journey with weight loss. If it is weight loss, I tend to lump protein and fat together and keep that towards the end of the day. So what I would typically do, if you want to have one of our nut milk smoothies, I would say to have that after lunchtime, maybe between lunch and dinner or something. And then once you introduce that nut milk, I would not recommend having any more fruit the rest of the day, unless there are a couple exceptions to that. Berries and citrus actually do not react negatively with fat. So I don't typically go into all the weeds, but those two things you can pretty much have anytime. So like that, like if I have a fruit at nighttime, it's always like citrus or like raspberry or something because they don't negatively react. Um, so yeah, so that like with the nut milk based smoothies or proteins, I do recommend having them later in the day, rather than mixing them with the fruit. For example, I'll also explain to you like a typical snack people like to have is like an apple with peanut butter, right? So that's protein and fat mixed with an apple. So, and the reason why people recommend that is because, like you're saying, it makes the sugar and the carbohydrates kind of absorb slower, and it has good theory behind it. And from a health standpoint, there's nothing unhealthy about it. From a weight loss standpoint, though, it is the opposite of what you'd want to do because every food digests at a different rate in your gut. So fruit is in and out of your gut within 35 minutes because there's so much water, and it's basically water and fiber. But nuts or fats or proteins can take anywhere from 2 to 6 hours, depending if you are a fast or slow metabolizer. So if you've been here before, you guys might have heard me say this analogy before, but you can actually test to see what type of metabolizer you are. And the way you do that is you wait until you have in the morning, don't eat. Wait until you have a genuine hunger pang, like you actually feel hungry, and have a handful of raw almonds. And then see when you actually feel another hunger pang again. And that's how you know how fast your body is metabolizing that and moving that out of your system. Most people that have problems with weight are slow metabolizers, and they're going to fall like in the 4 hour range. I was such a slow metabolizer when I tested it that I was in the 6 hour range before I started feeling hungry. So that was very eye opening to me. So, because when you're eating something that digests quickly versus something that digests slowly, picture this in your gut, like a push and pull reaction happens. One's trying to move out of your gut, one's staying in your gut. And so this push and pull happens and it causes fermentation and gas in your gut, which causes bloating or slows weight gain, slows weight loss, or whatever the case might be. So that's one of the reasons why I recommend having fats and proteins only with vegetables and greens. And even, if you look into food combining, you'll see people tell you not to have it with starches. I certainly have, potatoes or rice with fat and protein and have zero problems whatsoever. And I think I'm a really good example of a tough case. So I think you'd be totally fine to do that. But yeah, keeping the fruit out of that is definitely the recommendation that I typically make.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's interesting. Definitely giving me some ideas, but I wanted to because and I'm glad you mentioned about the female body, and I'm not trying to say that our bodies are not everybody's body is different, regardless, but definitely I've had a really unique experience with after pregnancy and breastfeeding, and also trying to maintain a clean eating diet and trying to get the protein and the fats, and I had to kind of drastically change what I was doing. And it really wasn't until I completely stopped breastfeeding and lactating altogether that I was able to even recognize my metabolism. Just your tidbits are very interesting because I do I take a borage oil supplement it's like a complete from Nordic Naturals, and I don't know when was the best time to take that. I take it with carrot juice, or if I'm doing I actually really love raw goat milk and raw milk, and we have that
Nice.
in the state where I live, so
I
it's
wish we had
really
you.
it's super nutritious for somebody like me that um you know I just needed to get a lot of nutrients in a small, really nutrient dense, basically, was my main thing. So these other little tidbits are interesting and to think about, because I don't think I really consciously decided to take that supplement um at the night or in the morning. I just was more taking it with carrot juice, because that's has the fat soluble vitamin A, so I was they'll help
Right.
each other.
That was a good thought to do that for sure. And you can still have your
Yeah.
carrot juice during the day too. I mean, and
Yeah.
also as a caveat, since you mentioned that, that recommendation that I make, and that is my recommendation, is not necessarily the case with breastfeeding though. Because when you're
Yeah.
breastfeeding, you definitely need a lot of calories, you need fat, you need protein, you need them at every meal. So that is a different
Yeah.
segment of a woman's life that doesn't include
Totally.
the thing I just talked about. But
No, yes, it
yeah.
totally. And just to meld that with my understanding was this is really great. And I am done finally. I have a really long lactation period, and I had 3 kids, and this last time I really had to be really conscious about my protein, because I was getting headaches. I know that's what I identified it as, is that it was a lack of protein. And so I had to really try to figure out how can I maintain my clean eating and my ethics, because I've been almost a lifelong vegetarian, but so I just really feel bad about eating animals. And so but I do think that it's great to support the free range animals and all that. That's one of the best things we can do, is to support the animals is to support farmers that are treating them nicely. And I really needed to have some of that extra protein. There was just no way, I don't know. And again, a unique part of my life and a unique thing. So I just wanted to kind of confirm if you, because I kind of assumed that we were putting fats and proteins together. And I like also that you mentioned eating the protein later, because then that can also help you. So in the morning, you don't have that like
It satiates you longer.
yeah, like you're like I could like I couldn't like if I was doing my regular thing where I wasn't eating as much proteins, like not paying attention to the lactation needs and all these things, I wasn't able to like, it wasn't just the baby waking me up, it was like hunger waking me up and not being able to sleep through to the night. And so that was just a really big thing that I had to modulate, that I really struggled with because of like the vegetarianism and then not knowing when. So thank you for just clarifying that you were kind of putting the proteins and the fats together. And that's a good way to think about it, because there's really no way to separate, even if you're eating all like, you know, the paleo meat diet, there's no way to separate out fats and proteins. They kind of come together. And I definitely think like greens and protein is easier for me to digest than like I could not sit and eat 3 bags of grapes. That would destroy me. Like I can eat blueberries and stuff, but grapes just too much like sweetness or something for me. That's over. But I love berries, and I'm glad that you mentioned that stuff too, because like that kind of, those are things that I noticed for me that don't bother me as much as like, you know, the berries with the high fiber and the whatever else, the super antioxidants, whatever else magic that they have in there.
Have you ever tried making like yogurt or kefir from your raw milk and stuff? Because that's like what I would do if I could get it here, which I can't.
I did buy some kefir grains ones, but I never have used them, to be perfectly honest. You know, I've done the kombucha, but I have not done that. And honestly, the other like the co-parent in my life is like not super into raw. Like I had to like get the raw milk and like drink it within 3 days so I could like comply with his feeling risky about me drinking raw milk, and but also my need to know that I was getting the nutrients that I needed. Like it's just so nutrient dense. That's just what I decided my body, that's what I craved. So I went with it.
That was a good choice. That was a good choice that you made, in my opinion. So
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Maybe I'll try that sometimes. I just met somebody at the gym actually who's gonna start like a goat farm around here, and he was like all into raw milk. So hopefully we get some of that, because definitely pasteurized goat milk is not the same taste.
anything pasteurized is not the same, or even the same efficacy of health. It's basically a dead food, you know, and those are the foods that cause all of the health issues that people associate with dairy and even with fruit juice and stuff. You know, the whole unpasteurized is the whole point, in my opinion. So
yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for your expertise. I'm glad I was able to join.
Me too. This is great. So maybe the Thursday was good for some people. By default.
Yeah.
Let me see. I missed some messages here. I saw that one of the chocolate shakes are being discontinued. Yes, our protein shakes, the vanilla and chocolate protein shakes, are discontinued. We still have quite a bit in stock, so you can still get it in our Build a Box for a while. And I'll just be totally transparent. The reason why we are discontinuing them is because people want protein shakes that are low calorie and high protein. And in order to do that, it takes chemicals, and we refuse to use chemicals. So I made the best protein recipes that I could make, but to make high protein recipes from the ingredients that we use, which are all plants, the only option I really have are nuts. The protein powder is just, everything I tried tasted gross. I tried chickpea. I tried everything to try to make them taste good and also be a quality that I would stand behind. In order to get 16 plus grams of protein, it just made the calories between 400 and 500 calories. So they are truly full meal shakes. If you're placing a meal with them, you're totally fine to have them. But a lot of people just were not loving that. Like our core customers, I think, are weight loss customers, and they were too afraid of the numbers instead of really reading the literature behind it. And as much as I can educate people, you can't change. It's really hard to change the cultural things that have been nailed into people's heads. That's, so that's why they're being discontinued, really, because they just can't compete with the other protein shakes that people are buying that are certainly less clean, but that's the numbers that people want to hit with their targeted macros and things like that. So, but we still have chocolate cashew, which I think is also delicious, and that's 11 grams of protein with a little bit less calories. All our smoothies are pretty decently high in protein. They're all between 9 and 14 calories, 9 and 14 grams of protein. So yeah, sorry to say that is going, but that is the reason. Okay, Melissa, I have only done the lower sugar cleanse and the regular cleanse. Can you talk about the Stay Skinny option? Sounds like you said it comes with food suggestions. Oh, I can definitely talk about that because it is my absolute favorite thing that we offer. And the reason it's my favorite is because it's a legitimate pouring out of what I believe in, and I turned it into a product. Because when I started here, I should give you a little background just because if you guys haven't been here before. This company started 12 years ago, and the people that own it are a good friend of mine from middle school and her father. Now, she reached out to me before the company started, long before the company started, when her grandmother got sick, knowing I was a nutritionist and wanted some advice for her grandmother with cancer. And I hadn't talked to her since school. I just told her the kind of I was eating a raw diet, what I do. And her father called me the next day and said, "Hey, my name is Bill Guyer, our CEO," and said, "I want to try a fresh and raw diet. I want to try to get healthy." So I said, "Okay." So at that point, I had a food service that I did for my clients. I made meals. And so he ordered my meals. And 2 months later, he lost 60 pounds eating an all raw diet and felt amazing. And they became real believers in raw food nutrition and unpasteurized food. And one day I went to deliver his food, and I remember standing in his kitchen, and he said, "Lise, what do you think about juice?" I said, "Juicing is great for you. What do you want?" And he's like, no, like a business. I'm like, "You mean like a juice bar? You want to open a juice bar?" And he said, no, I want to make juice and I want to freeze it and ship it so people can always have it in their freezers when they need it. And it'll be just as good as fresh, but it'll be frozen. Is that still as good for people? And I said, "It's about as close to fresh as you can get." Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And I kid you not, 2 weeks later, I walked over and he was in his garage and he had a setup going. And the very first beginning of Raw Generation literally started right in his garage. And I saw it happen. I helped him tweak the first Sweet Greens drink back then. And so I've always been friends with them. They've always been my clients. And I've always kind of consulted with different issues. I helped write their first website and do some videos for them. But I was never full time with this company until 3 years ago. And when I started working here full time 3 years ago, I noticed that we had all these great cleanses. People loved them, but there was nothing for them to do after a cleanse. So they would lose the weight they wanted to lose. They would detox, but then they would go back to their old habits. They didn't know what to do. There was no post-cleanse education because there was no nutritionist here, really. Jessie, the daughter, she does have a health coach kind of degree, but it's not like I have, a lot of different nutrition degrees. It just didn't have the same kind of knowledge level. And so I was like, well, we need something for these people to do after their cleansing so they can, number one, keep losing weight. And number two, they can actually learn to have healthy habits. Like what I teach people every day. That's what I'm all about, is being healthy. And so the Stay Skinny method is meant to come after any of the cleanses, really. It's a weekly program. You can do it weekly or biweekly or monthly or whatever, but it's intended to be weekly, at least at first. And it's been tested and time again proven to help you lose 2 to 3 pounds every week. And the way it's done is exactly what I've been talking to you guys about, teaching people how to eat from light to heavy and using the juices to help you do it, and then giving you meal suggestions along with that. So in a nutshell, it's a green juice in the morning, all the fruit you want until lunch. A late lunch is one of the smoothies that I told you about. And then you're having, again, there's some options you can have for snacks if you want between lunch and dinner, but usually you're pretty full. And then there's extensive clean eating guidelines for dinner. One of them is the no cooking in oil and other things I mentioned on this call. You're having a little skinny boost before dinner. That's a tiny little, they're my favorite flavor actually that I've ever made here. Digestive shot. It tastes like hibiscus and pineapple. And that is basically like having a digestive enzyme. So if you've ever tried those like little pills, those pills are just bromelain or papain, which is pineapple and papaya enzyme in a pill form. So to me, it's like, why the heck would you just have the fruit? Why would you have a pill? That's just my brain, how it goes. So I put that in a little bottle form, in a juice form. And so you have that 10 minutes before you eat your dinner, which helps to negate the bloating and helps you digest your dinner better. And then you have your normal healthy cooked dinner with all these kinds of options. And that program also includes 38 of my recipes, like that hummus and other things, all super simple, meant for busy people, like very realistic because I'm a super busy person. So everything the things I make under 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Healthy swaps for your kitchen, an eating out guide, which goes into great detail about different types of restaurants and bars and how to make choices off those menus. I kind of give you like very specific options of how to eat in all different kinds of places. If you want to stay on your plan, or if you want to do the 80 for the 20 and go off the plan, totally fine too, but then just how to get back on. So that is that program. And I believe in it. I actually believe in it even more than our cleanses. I love cleansing. I cleansed with my clients for years, long before coming here. But I think it's great to do one into the other. Or if you just are the kind of person who doesn't really want to not eat, cleansing, basically, there's a few things you can eat, but mostly you're just drinking juice. And that can be a turn off to some people, or you can't do it forever. I mean, you can do it for a long time, but realistically, you shouldn't do it forever. The Stay Skinny method or something like that, you can do literally the rest of your life. And once you learn the habits, you don't necessarily have to use the product to do it. It's the method teaches you how to make it into your real life as well. So I don't have to try to sell it because I just believe in it so much. It literally is like an outpouring of what I would tell my clients to do every single day when I would meet with them. And I just kind of matched it up with our products that we offered people. It also happens to be my favorite selection of flavors because when I made those, that was when I first started here, and we didn't have any smoothies. Like we had to actually learn the technology to do massive size scale smoothies. And that took they wanted to kill me. Actually, it took about 4 months of trial and error before we were able to produce smoothies in the quantity that we do our juices. But we came to a point where we could get them smooth. You know, I'm used to a Vitamix, so that means like no fiber, smooth, and that is really, really hard to replicate on a large scale. I will tell you, extremely difficult. And I was extremely picky, and they would make fun of me when I would show up at the facility. I said, nope, not smooth enough. Nope, 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 nope. And eventually we finally got it. And so I absolutely love those smoothies. They're my favorite flavors. The cookies and cream and the creamsicle. Those are legitimately flavors from my childhood. I made the creamsicle flavor taste like if you've ever been on the Jersey Shore, there's a place called Coors Ice Cream on all the boardwalks. It's an orange vanilla twist ice cream, my favorite thing of all time, and it tastes just like that. So that was definitely a replica of that. And cookies and cream to me taste like melted cookies and cream ice cream. So those are two of my favorite foods, but before it was healthy. Anyway, so I love that product. So I'm glad you asked about it. It's also a really good price point too. I mean, not to be salesy, but it is our cheapest thing that you can do, because if you do on a subscription, it's only $99 a week, and you're replacing a lot of food with that. So we try to make things as affordable as we can, but as you know, it's not cheap to do raw produce and to juice it. So we definitely do our best. Jessica, any changes with what you talked about for someone with hypothyroidism and no gallbladder? Asking for a friend. Yes. I mean, without knowing a full history, there are always certain things that have to be tweaked for certain conditions, obviously. Hypothyroidism, slow thyroid, or what was the thing? No gallbladder. Well, the no gallbladder thing, that you should know already that you have to be careful with your fat intake. I would tell you never to have anything fried. I'm sure you probably know that already. This kind of lifestyle is great for someone with no gallbladder, because you're only having raw fats ideally, because I'm telling you not to heat any of your fats, and you're only having them in once a day. The difference between what I'm telling you is that I do them without restriction, and what you should probably do is have them in a very small quantity and not a large quantity, and test your body and see what your body can handle. You might be surprised what your body can handle when you have high quality fat and not like junky quality fat, but that's something like maybe you would start with a quarter of an avocado and not 2 avocados on a salad like I eat, so that would definitely be something I would tell you to move into slowly. And as for the hypothyroidism, the thyroid is an amazing gland, and it's like the most I feel like the most problematic gland for women right now. And I think that's totally a function of the fact that we are bombarded with chemicals in our food, in our personal care products, in our pollution, in our water supply. We're just bombarded with these chemicals, and the thyroid is so sensitive to chemicals. So one thing I recommend for thyroid clients is to really take stock of the personal care products you use, because there's so many endocrine disruptors in your personal care products. I know this is not a food, but it all goes hand in hand, because I'll just give you a great example of how absorbent your skin is. I was in school, and there was a textbook, and it gave me an example of talking about your skin and how it absorbs everything. And it said that if you stand in a bucket of warm water and put garlic cloves in it, you'll have garlic breath in 20 minutes. And I remember thinking, these people are nuts. But I was reading it, and my brother was sitting next to me. He's like, I'm going to try it, right? So of course he goes, my younger brother, he wasn't try it. And I kid you not, 20 minutes later, the kid had garlic breath by doing it. So that's how fast your body absorbs what you put onto your skin. So, we are so used to having, our makeup and our skincare routine. And lots of times these companies greenwash, and they say they're clean, and they're really not clean at all. And it's a whole different kind of education, and it's certainly not my area of expertise. I have people that I trust, that I will completely believe that they really vet what they recommend, and so I go with their recommendations, or I stick with things that I know every ingredient in. So my favorite skincare, for example, is a company right in New York City. It's called Live Live Organic. I order from them. I used to go in person, but now I just order from online. They have like a Be Yummy skin food line, and I use their cream, their mask, and their lip stuff, because it's just basically honey based. It's like 6 ingredients, all things you can make in your own kitchen. I think it's amazing. It feels great. It looks great. It helped heal my niece's eczema when she put it on her skin. So I love that brand of stuff. I get no kind of affiliate. I just love them. And I do recommend, if you have like an Instagram account, there's an account I love. Her name is Low Tox Lily, and she really vets up and down all kinds of personal care products. And she's my go-to for if I don't know if something is clean or not. And she will, even though she's a big account, if you send her a screenshot of any label that you have, she'll tell you if it's good or bad. She's amazing reading labels, and it's too much for my brain to wrap around. But so I'm segueing into that, because your thyroid definitely responds to chemicals on your skin and also in your food. So if you are a thyroid person, I would definitely recommend doing as much organic as you can. We are non-GMO. We do have a lot of organic products. We are not certified organic. That being said, our stuff is as high quality as we can get it and as local as we can get it. So I do stand behind our products, obviously. But you might want to be, depending upon if you are medicating or not. I mean, the funny thing with thyroid is this, you could be medicating for your thyroid, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, but the very medication itself is toxic to your thyroid, as well as helping to help your thyroid. It's never actually going to heal your thyroid. It's just helping it function. But by the very nature of it being a pharmaceutical, it's also toxic to any kind of sensitive organ like that in your body. So, complex stuff there. So that's something that I would really sit with someone. And there's a whole thyroid diet that I have that I would, go over with somebody. But there are certain foods, like, for example, raw Brazil nuts, amazing for your thyroid. I recommend having at least 2 a day if you have an underactive thyroid. It acts like Synthroid in your body. It has so much selenium in it that some people have actually replaced their Synthroid by having Brazil nuts instead. I'm not telling you to do that, just saying I know people who have done it. So yeah, that's kind of a bigger question than I can get into all the details here. But no, as far as adjusting what I've said, the basic health principles for digestion are the same, whether you have a healthy thyroid or a non-healthy thyroid. But definitely do some more digging and be really careful. One thing I'll tell you is don't believe any study you read in the first 3 pages of a Google search, because they're all funded by the companies trying to sell you a product. So dig deeper than a basic Google search to find your information if you want to find really honest, legit info. And feel free to email me if you have specific questions. Lisa Testa or Raw Generation. I'm happy to answer any of your questions specifically anytime. Okay, I think I didn't miss any. Let me just double check though. Good. I hit everybody's questions on the side. We still have a few minutes left. If there's anything lingering that anyone wants to ask, feel free. This is your last chance. Oh, it was really, really great being with you guys. I love the small group sometimes because I can actually get everyone's questions in and have time to answer them in more detail than usual. So thanks for being here. And next month, it should be the first Wednesday, like usual, of the month. You'll be getting those emails. And you, of course, all be getting a recording of this if you want to rewatch or forget anything. Thanks for being here. I love these calls. They're my favorite part of my job for sure. So nice to meet all you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.